Many of the world's reefs are at risk because of pollution and ocean acidification. These terraces covered in algae nodules are possibly of higher diversity in terms of number of species than the coral reef itself. The destruction of these reefs also extends to the habitats they carry. As you begin to lose coral reefs, you begin to lose the foundation supporting the food chain. Professor Byron Williston of Wilfrid Laurier University also shares a concern for the well-being of our coral reefs. Today, I have with me Professor Byron Williston of Wilfrid Laurier University. Professor, thank you for being with me here today.
Thanks for having me.
For starters, could you explain why ethics is necessary in the discussion of climate change?
Sure. I mean, it's, when I think when most people think about climate change, they think of the scientific aspect of the issue, which of course is understandable because that's what we are fundamentally talking about, is the way that anthropogenic or human-caused activities have altered the biosphere to such a significant extent over the last 200 years or so, especially the last 50 years. So it makes sense to focus just on the facts, as it were, as interpretable by science. But that always leaves open the question of what we ought to do. Insofar as we recognize that certain collection of our activities is leading to problems. And if there are, as there are in this case, options for us, then we want to know which is the best option for us to follow or pursue. And that's where ethics enters the picture. It allows us to compare possible futures or possible courses of action with one another and decide which one of them sort of conforms best to what we collectively want the future to look like.
Wow. Okay. Now, in your opinion, how would the loss of coral reefs exhibit negative repercussions?
Well, coral reefs are often described as the rainforest of the ocean, and that has a lot to do with the fact that they are they're magnificent storehouses of marine biodiversity. They cover about 0.1% of the global oceans, so it's not much. It's not, in terms of the actual space they take up, it's not much at all. But in spite of that fact, around half of all marine species are either directly or indirectly dependent on the health of coral reefs. So if you get if you get a massive crash of coral reefs for one reason or another, then you're gonna see knock-on effects in the entire marine ecosystem that could have devastating effects for human beings down the road, since many of us depend on fish proteins for livelihood. So the way in which corals are affected negatively by by climate change is essentially twofold. It's both the amount of carbon dioxide that gets into the oceans and the warming of the oceans. The carbon dioxide itself, which gets transferred from the atmosphere into the oceans, raises the acidity of the water, and because of that, you get many of the animals that are dependent on corals unable to build their shells, and so that's a problem for life systems there. And the same sort of thing or related things happen when the temperatures of the oceans are raised even just a little bit. Like a lot of species in the biosphere, many of the ones that are dependent on healthy corals are really, they can operate only within a very small sort of window of temperature range. And so when the waters get either too cold or too warm, their existence is threatened.
Thank you very much for your input. That was phenomenal. Your answers, they blew me out of my seat.
Excellent.
The oceans are acidifying quicker than they have in the previous 300 million years. This year, we have seen the most extreme and catastrophic coral bleaching episode in recent history. This issue is bigger than all of us.